So I've never been a Madness Combat fan. I knew it existed, that's the extent of my knowledge. Well, okay, not just that. Let's see, I knew the main character was called Hank, I knew Tricky, I knew both of their designs. That's about it. Yeah, see, I never got into Newgrounds growing up. I barely knew what it was until a few years ago. However, one day I met a Yeti who, for some fucking reason, has braces, and that Yeti was how I found out about Madness Combat. I was running out of ideas after my video on Sonic Prime, and recently I got the urge to watch the animated show from 2011 that is still seemingly going on today. So I decided, fuck it, let's go ahead and review this show, because why not? So after having gone through every single non-filler episode, I can officially say, what the fuck was that? Definitely the strangest pilot episode I've ever seen. It's not too special in its own right, to be honest. It's mainly just a bunch of characters who are going to reoccur later, fighting over a boombox. It involves the main character, Hank, shooting a bunch of people who look just like him, with this other character dancing in the background. It's not very deep, it's a funny animation, but still, not the most interesting episode of all time, and really it serves zero relevance to what happens later on. I just included it because it does have some importance, since it debuts Hank and Jesus, who will be a strong antagonistic force for Hank later on. This arc was a lot more interesting because you actually get a lot more of a plot. It consists of episodes 2 and 3. Episode 2 was genuinely alright. I to constantly see Jesus appearing and doing stuff, instead of just randomly appearing in the end. It's a small bit of build-up that I like. I also think the choreography improved slightly. It's still mostly just turning around and shooting people, but you've got small moments, like when Hank exits a room and then goes up into the vents to take out 2 enemies. Or when he's in an elevator and he climbs up and takes a bunch of people out by shooting the ropes on the elevator. Episode 3, however, is where everything improves a ton. For starters, Hank is more distinguishable now. At the end of episode 2, he gets shot in the head. In this episode, he's revived and has a bandage on top of his head. It's not too substantial, but I think it's a good starting point, especially as his design will continue to evolve and grow throughout the series. The choreography also begins to get pretty diverse here. For example, you've got Hank using people as shields, using a lot more melee weapons, and my favourite part is where half of the screen gets chopped off. It's all very interesting to watch, and combined with the music, does very well to keep the viewer entertained. The Tricky arc is joint with the Auditor Arc for the longest one in the show. It spans over 4 episodes in which we follow Hank's goal to defeat Tricky the Clown, a minor character eventually turned extremely powerful. With that said, let's take a look. Episode 4 is the first episode in the show to feature an actual intro animation. It's nothing special, but it is neat to include. Hank's design has once again been updated to include a bandage around his chest, where he was stabbed at the end of the Sheriff arc. The animation definitely is of higher quality in this episode, with a lot more close-ups and zoom-ins. The choreography isn't too much to write home about, however we do get a lot more melee action in this episode, which I think is cool, because we weren't really getting much of that before. I also love the callback to episode 1 that Tricky does at the end of the episode. In episode 5, Hank starts to get closer to his, in my personal opinion, best design. But he's not there yet. I also love how Jesus gets more of a role in this episode. So far he's been doing well as a roadblock for Hank, but in this episode he's out in full force, blocking anything Hank sends at him. He and Hank also have one of my favourite moments in the series, where Hank is using guns as a makeshift sword, as he's out of bullets. Jesus being so OP in this episode also makes for a great show of strength at the end, when Tricky kills Jesus with minimal effort, and kills Hank just as easily. It gives us a good idea that Tricky is not like any other foe Hank has faced so far, and I love that. I also love the kind of creep factor Tricky has. Him taking over the screen while Hank and Jesus are fighting was so unexpected, and I think that's really unique. Moving forward with episode 6, Hank's design here is probably my least favourite, mainly due to how unnatural it looks. But that's obviously the point. It's clear by now that Hank is not supposed to be alive, so him having this kind of absurd and creepy look fits him a lot. I still don't like it though. This is also the episode where Hank gets even more brutal than he already was, going from using guns and swords to kill people to straight up using his bare hands to rip off the heads of those who get in his way. This episode also has one of my favourite sequences where Tricky gets a train and Hank fights his way through it. It's really cool to see animation wise, and it's a really unique sequence that you not only wouldn't get with an arc like the Sheriff arc, but it fits Tricky as a character a lot too. It also has some great visual gags, like Jesus becoming a leaf raker, or this guy taking a photo of a couple only for them to get slaughtered by the train. I think this episode is just great all around, and the ending of it has a really cool Tricky design. Finishing off the Tricky arc, episode 7 is another great one. It, first of all, starts pretty differently to the rest of the episodes. Instead of Hank being the one slaughtering and looking cool, it starts with Tricky being the ever-living hell out of Hank, who then proceeds to get my favourite design for him out of every episode. It's extremely sleek looking, and I love the combo of red and black, so it's an instant win for me. We then move on to this really cool escape sequence where Hank has to run from Tricky. This is pretty interesting to be honest, because throughout the show we've always seen Hank to be the one who runs towards danger and never from it. So to see him running away from Tricky in this scene, and in some shots even looking kind of afraid, was a really unique thing to see. The ending of this episode is pretty good as well. I love how we get to see the return of Jesus, and we get a tease for the next arc, which reveals who was behind the scenes this entire time. Like stated at the beginning of the Tricky arc review, this one is also joint for the longest arc and is currently the final arc of the show, aside from some filler stuff. So let's see what the current final arc has to offer. Episode 8 is really interesting because it's the only episode in the entire show to not feature Hank in any capacity, instead choosing to put a focus on Jesus, who is confronting the Auditor. There's nothing too much in my opinion to write home about with this episode, but I do think a Jesus focused episode is very cool. It's also got some good sequences, such as when Jesus flies over to the Auditor while he's spraying a minigun at him, or when Jesus sees two enemies, goes into the elevator, puts a box in front of them, then waits for them to come out. I also thought the cliffhanger ending was interesting as it literally ends with them getting nuked. Episode 9 is so much better though. It starts with Sanford and Demos in a vehicle chase. Sanford and Demos are the characters from the arc fittingly titled the Sanford and Demos arc, which, by the way, apparently is a filler arc according to the wiki, so I'm not going to talk about that or episode 9.5 in this video. But if you want me to, and this video does well, I totally will. Back on topic though, the vehicle chase is really fucking good. It's probably up there for my favourite sequence in the show. It's animated really well, the choreography is good, which at this point is a given for this show, and it directly ties into the ending of the last episode. We also got the reveal that Jesus has died, which sucks, but I mean, it was expected. Also, by the way, I love the Auditor's design. It's really simple, but I think that helps to make it feel more mysterious. This episode, for the most part, is a Hank rescue mission, so he's out of commission for a good chunk of the episode, which honestly is fine. He's been the central character for most of the show. Letting other characters have the spotlight for a bit is a good idea, and when Hank does come back, he comes back with a new design, which I think is an alright design, but his episode 7 design is still my favourite. Episode 10 starts exactly where episode 9 left off, with Hank and Sanford fighting the Auditor. Also, while not important, I think it's good to mention that this is the first episode in a widescreen format. I love the opening fight scene though, genuinely. It's well made, and I think my favourite part is where Crinkles, the animator for these, 100% knew he fucked up with Hank's claw, so he has it turned into an arm again. And it's not just retconned either, there's an actual lore reason for how Hank does that. Also, holy shit, this must have taken forever to animate. Every time the Auditor moves, he has these flame particles that look extremely fluid. And while it's a cool detail, I deadass feel bad for Crinkles having to animate that. This episode just gets more mad every 10 seconds. I loved how Hank has gone from this small, agile assassin to this raging brute who just punches people, and instead of using a small weapon like a Glock or a sword, he's using fucking machine guns. It's kind of both sad and really cool at the same time. Sad because it's upsetting to see how much of a monster Hank has turned into due to being experimented and revived so many times, but cool because he looks fucking raw as shit. I also love how Tricky makes one last return at the end of the episode and weakens the Auditor. I think it's really great to see how this shows that the Auditor does have weaknesses, and as strong as he may be, he's not a god. With that said though, let's move on to the final episode, which is also the longest episode, clocking in about 9 minutes total. If you don't count the complete version of 9.5, which is 2 episodes put into one. There's also a 7-year real world difference between episode 10 and 11, as 11 didn't release until early 2019. Literally everything in this episode is on fucking point. The animation is incredible, the choreography is genuinely some of the best I've ever seen. The art style itself has improved a ton, even the little things like the design of the Auditor. I love how it's a mix of Tricky, Jesus, and himself. It's so fucking good. Hank has fucking lightning powers, he is popping off in this episode. Even Sanford is going crazy. Everything about this finale is incredible. I can't really think of a flaw other than I'm going to have to wait forever for episode 12. This is the perfect way to end off this arc, and it's insane to compare this to the first episode because the difference in quality is so insanely large. So, my thoughts on Madness Combat? I love it. It's genuinely a great show. It makes incredible use of visual storytelling. It uses zero dialogue, and instead of taking away from the show, it assists it. I never understood before doing this review on why this show was so loved, but having actually watched it, it's really good. There's so much love and passion put into this show, and when we do get episode 12, I'd totally be down to watch it because the rest of the show is insane. I 100% understand why this franchise is such a cult following, despite being kind of unknown. And again, if this video does well enough, I'll 100% talk about the other episodes. Hell, I actually already watched 9.5, I just didn't talk about it because I didn't know how to fit it in, and I didn't really think it was that important to talk about. With that said, thank you all for watching, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you all next time.